Regan Slaymaker for International Boxing News, and I have the pleasure to welcome you all to episode 1 of This Week in Boxing, a new series for the channel where we go over kind of the things that have happened in boxing. I do have a confession to make. These episodes are gonna start on a Tuesday. That's where they're gonna be going out. Tuesdays, but I'm going to get this one out today, Thursday, as you're watching this, because I want to talk about the Nick Ball fight night that happened on Saturday night last night. So Tuesdays from here on in, Thursdays this week, and the preview show will be making a return as soon as possible. Just making a few tweaks and trying to find time to do everything with that. It's been a busy kind of start to the year, hence why new content and a few changes have been happening, less interviews, because I've been also doing some reporting for Not Just Boxing. So less interviews on this page, but there will be some more. There is sporadic interviews going up, but let's jump straight into it. Nick Ball versus TJ Dehenny. I mean, a relentless round 10 stoppage win for Nick Ball against TJ Dehenny. That TJ made it. I mean, he was very tricky and he was counter-punching in those early rounds, but Ball was dominating kind of from kind of round 3 onwards in a close competitive fight. I mean, he really took control in the mid-rounds and then kind of took full control from kind of round 6 onwards, I think, from my notes as well. I think Dehenny's eye looked terrible from round 6 and 7, and then it was eventually a good decision from his team to kind of to call the fight off at the end of the 10th round. I mean, I thought it was a lot of people were predicting a Ball stoppage early. I mean, TJ Dehenny's too tough for his own good. I think for a lot of people, I think if it was up to him, he's a fighter. He'd have carried on till the last round, I think. But his corner done the right thing, and if TJ does want to fight another day, I think his corner have saved him from doing that. And I mean, never write off TJ Dehenny. Shown after his losses to Conlon and Baluta, he goes and gets those wins in Japan, gets the opportunity to fight Naoya Inoue for the undisputed title. So never write him off. But an excellent win for Nick Ball it was in the end. And I mean, is he the best fighter in Britain at the moment? Frank Warren seems to think so. He says it's between him and Daniel Dubois, and obviously Daniel Dubois has that loss on his record. That's Frank Warren's words, not mine. I did catch up with Nick after the fight. This is what he had to say about kind of the build-up and everything like that.
I like fighting, yeah, giving it back to them that way, fighting and making them pay and hating them, because that's what it's about, isn't it? You know, it's you or them, so I'm trying to hate them, but I'm not just going to let them say things about me and say nothing back as well. I can handle myself in that way, so yeah, just done what I had to do.
Great to always catch up with Nick Ball, and that full interview is on Not Just Boxing's YouTube channel. I'll put the link in the description as well. The main kind of talking point of the fight, not many people are talking about the fight. A lot of people are talking about the situation that happened in the first round, where Ball seemed to kick Dehenny. Yeah, I have a less extreme views than a lot of people in the boxing space. From what Nick Ball was saying, TJ got him in a headlock that was tighter than what a fighter would normally do. So he's retaliated. He's admitted to himself that probably shouldn't have done it. My opinions on kind of what repercussions would have happened. Should the referee Michael Alexander? I'm pretty sure. Yep. Should Michael Alexander have taken a point off? Definitely. Should Nick Ball have done it? Definitely not. Should he have been disqualified? Absolutely not. Like, if you take everything into account, home world title defence, world champion in Liverpool, home show. The referee was never disqualifying Nick Ball for that. He was right next to it. He'd have seen how tight the headlock was, and he'd have seen the extremity of the kick. And all the arguments around if that was TJ Dehenny, TJ would have been disqualified. I actually don't think he would have been either. I think it'd have been. I think should a point have been taken off again. I don't think he should have been disqualified if that was the case. Mainly because the whole reasons I've said, it's a world title opportunity, it's another world title opportunity, it's a former world champion and things like that. I mean, TJ made the most of it, but he's an experienced guy. He's going to. But yeah, I feel like it's a bit of a non-issue at this point, and the amount of people who are asking Nick and Frank Warren about it post-fight was as they're right to do, but I really don't think a disqualification was necessary. Point taken off, definitely. Lucky to not get a point taken off Nick Ball, but he knew he shouldn't have done it, and I don't think he'll do it again, to be perfectly honest. But another great win in the career of Nick Ball, and by far, I think he's everyone's favourite fighter from Britain at the moment, if not the people from Britain thinking so as well. But what's next for Nick Ball? A lot of talk about a fight with Naoya Inoue, with obviously undisputed at Super Bantam, to move up and fight Nick Ball. I don't think that'll be soon. I think it'll be later on in the year. Frank Warren, I think, said December. Obviously, Inouye's fighting Raymond Cardenas on May the 4th. And then there's a lot of talk about a potential fight with Muradjan Akhmatov as well. So Nick Ball definitely needs to fight. In the meantime, if that's the case, you can't sit out and wait for Inoue. Frank Warren told me again, for Not Just Boxing, Nick isn't going to sit there and wait. And I think this is a perfect opportunity to fight one of the champions, Unify. In the meantime, you've got Stephen Fulton, who's got the WBC, just beat Brandon Figueroa for that. Rafael Espinoza has a WBO, and he fights Edward Vasquez on May the 4th. Obviously, Edward Vasquez having a close fight with Joe Cordina, I think last December, or the December before that. And Angelo Leao, he fights Tomoki Kamada on May the 24th in Japan as well. So it looks like if they were going to get a unification in between, Stephen Fulton is probably the best bet, and another former Inoue opponent as well. So the way you look at it that way is a lot of good preparation for what's to come as well, and it's a good measuring stick and a good yardstick to find out where Nick Ball is in relation to Naoya Inoue. I hope it's unification, and I hope unification next, and I really would like Ball to land that Inoue fight. I'm not saying he's the favourite, but I think of the fighters in Britain who have the best chance of beating him, Nick Ball's definitely up there. The undercard, I'm going to breeze through this because I wanted to make these videos kind of less than 15 minutes. Andrew Kane, Charlie Edwards. Less said about this one, the better. I don't want to disrespect Charlie Edwards in any way, because I think he's a fantastic fighter and he's a world level fighter, and he boxed on the second boxing show I ever went to against Julio Cesar Martinez. And I've kind of followed his career since then, and it's been very stop-start, but he's really coming back into the world stage recently. But I couldn't work out what his game plan was. I mean, it clearly worked because he only lost by a split decision, but when you're just moving and it doesn't look like, especially for I'm sat, that a lot of your work is landing and you're not doing enough to land, I couldn't see any way other than Andrew Kane was winning that fight. He did, but obviously by split decision. And Andrew Kane defends his British and Commonwealth bantamweight titles, and picks up that WBC silver strap as well, and that will give him a nice world ranking with the WBC as well. I think Kane should have an interim fight at the fringe world level. Jason Maloney, I think, is mentioned on the socials as well. That's a perfect fight to prepare him for a Junzo Nakatani. Again, I think the Everton Red Triangle crew, I think a lot of those guys, one more fight and then they're ready for that world title shot. Nick Ball has the world title, but he was matched perfectly with Isaac Dogbe. And then he fought Ray Vargas and things like that. They were preparing him for that world title fight. Andrew Kane has just beaten a former world champion, Charlie Edwards. Now fight a world level guy at the weight division. Obviously, Charlie Edwards won the European title at bantamweight, but a world champion in the weight divisions below. Yeah, I think they have the. I think Andrew Kane. I think one more, and then he deserves that world title shot. I think he's a very, very talented fighter, and he's got dynamite in both hands as well. And obviously on that card, Jack Turner, spectacular win against Ryan Farag. Yadir Herrera, what's not to like? Just look at his highlight reels, unbelievable. And Ainot Baluta beating Brad Strand as well. A contentious result to a lot of people. And I think Brad Strand's looking like Frank Warren was saying that he'll get the rematch with that. And now for the news. For the main part of this week in boxing, we'll move on to the news. Amo Williams beat Patrick Volney, and he's since been ordered in an IBF final eliminator to fight Janibek, so the winner would fight Janibek in that fight. Callum Walsh secured a spectacular KO against Sutherland on the UFC Fight Pass card. It was great news for them. Great to see Amo kind of back, loving his boxing, by the way. We didn't know how he would react. Obviously, he's had mental health issues, and then he loses to Hamza Shiraz. We didn't really know how he'd react, but he's just come straight back onto the big stage. And honestly, it's good to see, because I remember him boxing on the Jacobs Ryder undercard, and he was a spectacular talent. Then and he's just proved it and continued to go up the levels. Yeah, and this week, the news that's happened since last Thursday, Filip Hrgović steps in against Joe Joyce, with Dylan White pulling out on April the 5th, kind of saving that card. I mean, an amateur rematch between two former amateur standouts as well, and a win definitely puts Joe Joyce higher up the ladder than if he got a win against Dylan White, I feel. Obviously, at this time, Hrgović a lot better than Dylan White. Obviously, losing to Daniel Dubois, but no disgrace in that. Daniel Dubois, top 3 heavyweight on the planet at the moment. Unbelievable fighter. And again, a win for Filip Hrgović puts him in probably the exact same position than he was ahead of that Daniel Dubois fight. Not in the world rankings, but with Riyadh season and everything like that. Who's to say he's not going to get a big fight with a win against Joe Joyce? But Joe Joyce has a new opponent, and mate, you never know. The winner could get a rematch with Daniel Dubois. Fabio Wardley's just been made #1 contender with the WBA. Maybe that could be world title fight with Fabio Wardley for that regular title. Who knows? But a great fight, April the 5th. And Jack Rafferty's just been announced defending his Commonwealth title against Corey O'Regan. Royce Nabani-Smith added to that card. Obviously, a lot of good fights on that card. Ramtin Musa, former Team GB amateur standout, also on that card. The Canelo Skull undercard was announced, with the main fights on there being the rematch between Jaime Munguia and Bruno Saras. Obviously, Saras winning upset of the year in many people's eyes against Jaime Munguia. What a knockout that was. And Jaime Munguia jumped straight back into the deep end on the undercard of his new stablemate, Canelo Alvarez. I think a win probably puts him straight back up there, but he's got to be careful. I mean, rematch it. We don't know how well rematches can go in the career of Jaime Munguia, but this is a big moment for him in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia on May the 3rd. Badou Jack defends his WBC cruiserweight world title against his mandatory challenger Ryan Rizicki. I'm glad this situation is just finalising itself. Absolute mess, the WBC situation at cruiserweight, but it's back into the fold now, with this mandatory situation being resolved, and hopefully the winner gets a fight with Zerdo Ramirez or Jai Opetaia as well. And Martin Bakole is back in the heavyweight mix against F.A. Ajagba, obviously not an IBF the final eliminator anymore, due to Bakole losing to Joseph Parker and losing that right, but I'm glad the fight's still on. It's a great heavyweight fight. Yeah, Martin needs to be fit and ready for that. Please don't go to the Congo. Please go like he did against Joseph Parker. Please be ready. Please be fit, because a fit and ready and active Martin Bakole is a dangerous fight for anyone. Alicia Baumgardner, the still undisputed super featherweight world champion, is signed with Jake Paul and Most Valuable Promotions, which is a huge coup for Jake Paul and Most Valuable Promotions. They now have probably two of the big four in female boxing, it's fair to say. I mean, the big four, probably Katie Taylor, Amanda Serrano, Clarissa Shields, Alicia Baumgardner. Obviously, Alicia Baumgardner, Chantel Cameron, people in that ilk, right, it's probably up for debate, but I mean, Alicia Baumgardner's definitely up there, and it's a real coup for them, and a lot of good responses from people who are liking this signing and giving Jake Paul credit for being one of the few promoters in world boxing to really be pushing female boxing. Obviously, he's just secured the trilogy between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. He's doing everything he can to get Serrano that win when probably not many promoters would do after seeing his fighter lose twice to the same person. But I mean, fair play to him. My only thing that I love to see Alicia Baumgardner back fighting regularly and fighting on the big screen. But I don't know how much clarity there's been about her being able to fight since her positive drug test against Christina Linodatu. I know that there was a few statements. I know Alicia released a statement saying she was cleared, but kind of needs to be a bit more kind of clarity from that. But if she is clear to box and if she is clear to fight, then it'd be great to see her back in the mix. And I don't know, maybe a fight between Alicia Baumgardner and Amanda Serrano, an in-house fight between the two. Why not? It's probably one of the best fights in boxing. I imagine that would be a massive sellout in the US as well. And that, why wouldn't that fit on a Riyadh season bill? I think it's an absolutely excellent fight. The last couple, Eduardo Nunes, Sugar Nunes, the monster of the super featherweight division, finally gets his world title fight against Masanori Rikishi on May the 18th. On an undercard. Forgot the main event, but it's a world title fight for the WBO 118 title. Obviously Anthony Kakachi vacated the title after ahead of his fight with Lee Wood, that will solidify the IBF super featherweight situation, which he's been mandatory for a long time now. But hopefully he gets that all sorted. And the final bit of news I want to talk about: Shona Whitwell, former 7-time national champion, makes her debut on April 19th. Box Academy card, Warren Boxing Management, trained by John Ryder. Big things to come from Shona Whitwell. But this week in boxing, episode 1, all done. Let me know if you in the comments anything else that you'd want to see. It's good to get some different content on the channel. So thanks for watching. Hope you liked it, and I'll see you next week for episode 2. Peace.